Hello guys, welcome back to another Genshin video. Today I'm going to be bringing a Beidou guide for you guys. She is such a good support character and she's so popular and so good that I'm more surprised I haven't done a guide on her yet. So I'm finally going to do a guide for her. We're going to be looking over talents, constellations, best artifacts, best weapons, and teams to put her in. So I hope you guys enjoy this video and let's get right on to the guide. Now we're just going to quickly go into her talents because her talents are pretty unique and pretty fun to use. So we have an elemental skill Tidecaller, which when you press this elemental skill, you just do a lightning slash very quickly, dealing electro damage and give you some electro particles. But if you hold this skill, Beidou will actually lift up her claymore and use it as a shield. And the max damage she can absorb is based on the max HP. Every time an enemy hits Beidou in this state, she will get some energy upon her greatsword, and will do more damage based on the number of hits that she has taken. And the greatest damage is when she gets hit twice while she holds down her elemental skill. Now this is really cool, and with one of her passives, you can actually time this at a perfect time to get the max damage without having to hold it, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So this ability is really cool, really fun to use once you get the timing down, and does a lot of damage and generates electro particles. Her elemental burst is called Stormbreaker, and when you use Stormbreaker, you get these little thunder beasts swirling around your character, and she will do electro damage to nearby opponents. The cool thing about this ability is when normal and charge attacks hit, they create a lightning discharge that can jump between opponents dealing electro damage. So this ability is really good for blocking so many electro reactions and doing so much extra damage on top of your main DPS's damage, and with more constellations, this actually gets insane. And the cool thing about the lightning jumps of this ability, you can do really great crowd control with the electro damage, but also if you're just fighting two enemies, that lightning can jump between the two over and over. So her max damage she gets out of her elemental burst is actually when she's fighting two enemies, but she's still super duper amazing against more than two enemies as well. But also, Stormbreaker has an energy cost of 80, so you might want a little bit of energy recharge on your Beidou or pair her up with another electro character. Now her first talent we're going to talk about is Retribution. Now counter-attacking with the elemental skill, like I said earlier, at the precise moment when the character hit, grants the maximum damage bonus just by itself. So this is really good so you don't just have to hold down the elemental skill to get the max damage bonus. If you do time it right, you do a giant slash, do a lot of damage, generate more electro particles, and it just looks really cool. Now the second passive is more for main DPS Beidous, but after you do a maximum damage hit with Tidecaller, damage dealt by Beidou's normal and charge attacks are increased by 15%, and the attack speed of normal and charge attacks is increased by 50%, and will greatly reduce the delay before unleashing charge attacks. And then her last passive decreases swimming stamina consumption by all party members by 20%, so if you're swimming a lot in the open world, this is a good passive for you. So yeah, that's basically all for the talents. You got a cool elemental skill that can unleash a lot of damage, and if you time it correctly, it will do the max damage easily. And then Stormbreaker is really good for doing electro damage and jumping between a whole lot of targets. Now let's quickly talk about her constellations. Of course, none of these constellations are needed, but they do make Beidou better, especially some certain ones I'm going to talk about. Her first constellation is when her elemental burst is used, it actually creates a shield that absorbs up to 60% of Beidou's max HP for 15 seconds. And it absorbs electro more efficiently. So this does help with a little bit more survivability for your characters. Now, Constellations 2 is definitely one of the way better ones, is where her elemental burst's Arc Lightning can jump up to 2 or more additional targets. So this is really good because you can crowd control even more enemies, and once again, like I said earlier, between the two enemies, that means the lightning can jump between those two enemies 2 and 4 more times for even more damage. So this is definitely one of the better constellations, and it's really good because it's an early one too. Constellation 3 increases the level of the elemental skill. Constellation 4 is when Beidou is attacked, Beidou's normal attacks get an additional instance of 20% electro damage for 10 seconds. So this is also good if you're running main DPS Beidou, it will do a lot more electro damage and help pop Superconduct, but it's not all that important. Constellation 5 increases the level of elemental burst, and Constellation 6 is during the duration of the elemental burst, the electro resistance of surrounding opponents is decreased by 15%. So that electro damage is going to go through the roof, your lightning is going to do even more damage. It's just a really good and really simple type of constellation. So her best constellations are definitely 6 and 2. So as you can see, my Beidou is Constellation 6 because I got lucky enough. But of course, these are not needed but definitely help her damage. Now let's talk weapons. Now the first thing I want to do is actually talk about the 5 stars, Beidou's best 5-star weapon overall is Wolf's Gravestone because it's a massive attack boost and it's passive to increase your whole entire team attack. So this is definitely one of the best weapons you can put on your Beidou. And Skyward Pride will come after Wolf's Gravestone, but Skyward Pride is still really good because of its energy recharge substat and its high base attack. Now for 4-star weapons, I gotta talk about this Akumaru Claymore. It is so unbelievably good. It can basically get on par with Wolf's Gravestone as a 4-star at Refinement 1. So this is such a good 4-star. If you have this, please use this because this is absolutely insane for Beidou's burst damage. The Serpent Spine Claymore from the Battle Pass is actually a really good Claymore for her as well because that's a crit rate substat because crit stats are very important in this game. And every 4 seconds a character is on the field, they'll deal more damage, but take more damage. And the effects don't leave when you leave the field, but when Beidou takes damage. So maybe if you're on the field with Beidou for a little bit, you can get a stack, and then stay off of Beidou so she won't be taking any damage, or she'll just do more damage overall. Now another one of her best weapons is actually the Luxurious Sea Lord if you have it, because we did get it at Refinement 5 for free during the Moonchase Festival, and it increases elemental burst damage by 24%, so it is really good for Beidou, of course, because you can boost the elemental burst damage, and the elemental burst is super important to her kit. You could also use the Favonius Greatsword, which is pretty good. It's actually what I use for now until I get an energy recharge Sans. It does give energy recharge, which Beidou does really need because her burst does cost 80. So you might want a little bit of energy recharge, and also its passives gives even more energy, so I think this is pretty useful as well. And also another weapon shoutout is the Sacrificial Greatsword because it does have energy recharge substat, and you can use your elemental skill a little faster, but I don't think it's extremely needed to be honest. But if you do have it and you want to use it, you can level it up. You can also use the new Inazuma Craftable Claymore because I have an energy recharge substat and its passive increases elemental skill damage, and when an elemental skill hits, the character will lose 3 energy but generate 3 energy every 2 seconds for the next 6 seconds. So it gives back 9 energy. Basically what I'm trying to say is that Beidou has so many weapons you can actually use, okay? You can use Luxurious Sea Lord, Favonius Claymore, Sacrificial Claymore, Skyward Pride, Serpent Spine, Wolf's Gravestone. You know, you can use so many, okay? If you want more burst damage, I definitely recommend you use the Luxurious Sea Lord, the Akumaru, or Wolf's Gravestone. And if you want more energy recharge stuff, then definitely Favonius Lance, Sacrificial Claymore, Skyward Pride, and the Inazuma Craftable Claymore. I'm not gonna say that name because it's too hard. But anyway, that's all for the weapons. Now time to talk about Beidou's artifacts because there's a good amount of artifact combinations you can actually use on your Beidou. I'm just gonna get this out of the way. The one for the most burst damage overall is definitely 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate. It's super good because it also has an energy recharge 2-piece, and then it will increase your elemental burst damage based on your energy recharge. So this is the best overall artifact for burst damage only. So if you got a good 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate rating, maybe put it on your Beidou. The next combinations you can actually use is 2-piece Noblige, or 2-piece Thundering Fury, 2-piece Gladiator. Any combinations of those 3 would do very well on Beidou, just as budget costs for if you don't have the 4 entire sets of any of these. Because the Obelisk 2-piece increases burst damage, Thundering Fury 2-piece increases electro damage, and Gladiator 2-piece just gives an 18% attack. This could also be replaced with Shimenawa since they do have the same 2-piece as well. So any combinations of those 3 you could probably use on your Beidou and do a good amount of damage and be just fine. The last artifact combination I see not as much, but is still worth noting, is the 4-piece Noblesse Oblige. If you want your Beidous to boost your team's attack rather than her own, then you can win the first piece to Oblige because it will also buff everyone's attack by 20% after she uses her elemental burst. I don't see this one too often, but if you do want to go this route, then go ahead. Because this can be pretty helpful if you use a team that doesn't already have a Noblesse Oblige user. Now for the main stats on your Beidou's artifacts, the Sans, you can either go attack percentage or energy recharge. Go energy recharge if you feel like you do not have enough, but then go attack percentage if you feel like you do have enough energy recharge. And then the Goblet, of course, is electro damage bonus because it will boost the elemental skill damage and elemental burst damage greatly. And lastly, for the Circlet, critical rate or critical damage depending on your ratio. Now for the substats you want critical damage and critical rate, of course. And then you also want energy recharge because once again her burst does cost 80 energy points, so it might take a little long to get her burst back, so energy recharge definitely does help. And then of course attack percentage on the side. And there you go, that's all for Beidou's artifacts. Just to recap, you can run 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate for the most burst damage out of all the artifact sets. You can run any combination of 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece Thundering Fury, or 2-piece Gladiators to boost your overall damage and burst damage. And 4-piece Noblesse if you want to boost your team's damage rather than her own, but I do recommend boosting her own damage because it can get pretty crazy. Now the main stats you want for your Beidou is attack percentage or energy recharge depending on what stat you need more, and it could also depend on what team you're running. Then for the Goblet, electro damage bonus, and then crit rate, crit damage based on your ratio. And then for the substats, you want to go critical damage, critical rate, energy recharge, and then attack percentage. So yeah, that's all for the artifacts. Now time for team building with Beidou. Beidou works really well for being an off-field support DPS that can block a lot of electro reactions or just do a lot of good wall electro damage. She also pairs really greatly with other electro characters and characters that block a lot of hydro. So I'm going to showcase specific characters and specific combos you can use with your Beidou to make her absolutely insane. The first combo I want to highlight is Fissile Beidou because Fissile generates so many electro particles for your Beidou, so you can easily get Beidou's burst back up pretty quickly. Also, this does proc off the electro resonance, which is really good for generating even more electro particles. A lot of people will say if you use Beidou, you have to use Fissile with her. You honestly don't, but it does definitely make it a lot easier and get your Beidou's burst a lot more often. You can also pair Beidou up with Lisa. I know both Lisa's and Beidou's energy cost is 80, but they pair up so good together. When I use them together, they both generate a lot of electro particles for each other, and the electro resonance gives even more particles, and they always have their burst off cooldown when I use them together, so this combo is actually really good too. And also, like I said earlier, Beidou works really well with Hydro characters that can block Hydro a lot, especially Xingqiu. You'll be doing Electro Charge reactions out the wazoo if you use Xingqiu. And then Mon is really good for it because she can block a lot of Hydro, and then her burst does debuff enemies and do a lot of damage as well. So these are also good combos for your Beidou. Pretenders of Rosalia is Eula real quick, but Eula does work really well with Beidou because of course, Beidou procs Electro Charge, which in turn pops Superconduct with Eula, which means the Eula will do more damage. Beidou's burst will also do a lot of electro damage, you get the idea. And then of course, Beidou does work greatly with all animal characters because if the enemies are close together, then the burst can actually chain between the enemies. And then also for just general off-field DPS, you don't even have to proc a lot of electro reactions with Beidou. She just does so much raw electro damage that she can be paired great with just almost about any main DPS besides Raiden Shogun. Because you can just do a lot of electro damage off the field, help you out your main DPS, and yeah, she's crazy. So yeah, that's basically all for team building. As you can see, you can put her in so many teams with other characters to help do more DPS off the field, generate electro particles, and do a lot of crowd control. So yeah, that's all. You guys know what time it is. I think it's time for a little showcase. But of course, as always, before I do the showcase, I'm going to show you guys all my stats. My Beidou's attack is 1249 with elemental mastery of 63, crit rate of 47, and a crit damage of 151, an energy recharge of 182.9%, and electro damage bonus of 79.6%. So we're just going to start up this real quick. And there you go, I got my Beidou's burst. And now here's the cool thing about my Beidou. So I can just switch off her as soon as I use her burst. I can switch my Ningguang, and then you see those electro damage numbers like 2000, and now that they're right next to each other, now that I'm doing 6000 per crit, and they're chaining between each other like so many times. That's why she gets even better with only 2 enemies, because the lightning can just jump between them like crazy. And as you can see, it does help my Ningguang a lot, because since Ningguang is Geo, she can't proc reactions, so a lot of raw damage from certain characters does help a lot. So yeah, that's it for the showcase. Alright, that's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the Beidou guide. As you can see, Beidou's a really good support. I'm surprised I haven't made a guide on her yet because, I don't know, I'm wacky. I hope you guys now know what weapons, artifacts, talents to level up, what her constellations do, and what teams to put her in. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to see more guides like these, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment down below on who I should do next. And yeah, that's all for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one.